It's working.
Yeah.
I just started it again, and then yeah, it creates a weird notifications on multiple cameras.
Okay. So what I had done with the link that I'd sent out was I just sent a link to your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And that way, regardless of any links that we might change or whatever, it's not going to impact them because it still require them to do the same thing.
So here's what you should know, right?
Yeah.
Click on this. They'll go to there.
Yeah.
There's your live button.
Now, that's like we had somebody else. It's a bit of latency.
There'll be latency, and you should see it. Maybe I'm wrong. There we go.
Yeah, it's about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I'll just go stand up there again. Can you just check the frame here?
Yeah, I can adjust the frame.
And here, I've got HD 30. I'm not sure if it should be a different setting, but
No, HD 30 is fine. Okay, looks good. All right, come and take a look.
yeah, that's good. And so, is this live streaming now? So
Yeah.
anybody can put that link.
Maybe should be able to. Did you see me go up there? You didn't show up. I wasn't paying attention to it. So. Oh yeah, it works phenomenal.
So when prep starts, nothing has to happen here, does it?
No. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and.
No, it's showing up on this screen, but not on that one.
It'll come up because it'll catch up. See.
I see. Okay, so this is the live one.
Yeah. That's a Zoom.
Okay,
That's a Zoom, and this is
the stream.
The stream,
Okay. Okay.
and then in a little bit it should show up on the stream. See.
So how come it's showing phone call? Does that make
Um,
so mic mode? I wonder should we have it in a different?
no, the mic has to be. Yeah, it's kind of hard. We actually use a lapel when we
I'm
do
sure you do. Yeah.
events like this, or a directional mic.
Yeah.
So we
would
don't
you-
have any.
Would you recommend the wide spectrum or just keep it on standard?
If you put it in all echo, we'll
Okay.
all just keep it on standard
Okay.
because that's about the only one.
And then the phone, that's just odd why it's on phone.
It has to do with the Zoom setting.
Okay, okay, that's fine.
Probably. But if you, let's see, if I were to talk, does it pick up the audio? Because the audio will be whatever it is. Let me see if I can get the audio. Yeah, I'm hoping it'll be quiet, but you can hear the audio and see how choppy because it picks up all kinds of sound.
Right.
Right. Okay. So, but I mean that's the best we can do without.
So just let's recap and then we can be done. Do I need to do anything with this
No,
now?
just leave
It's
it.
just on autopilot.
Autopilot.
Leave it alone.
Yeah.
And then for this, I'm just going to press the record button.
Yep.
And then I just stand back and leave it alone.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
And then at the end, it's going to ask if you want to preserve the recording.
Yeah, and you'll preserve it on your iPad.
Okay.
And then,
That's a good thing because I don't know if I have enough storage on this to get the not work, if you know what I mean. So this way at least we've got two different devices.
Right. And then at the end, I'll delete my phone.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't.
Maybe at the end you can give me hands so that I don't inadvertently delete the recording.
Yeah, I will. I'll make sure I shut it down.
Okay. And that would then upload the file, whatever.
But there'll be a lot of dead space in here in the front, right? Because right now there's nothing.
Right. And I can just edit that.
Edit that out. Yeah. You know, a little bit of editing.
Okay, perfect.
All right, man.
Very much. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, man. Thank you.
That's wonderful.
And the second one is yeah. And so when you stand up here, yeah, come here, it's a big first step. You just make sure you're holding onto this handrail. Make sure you hold on to that. You doing?
I just keep it on.
If I could ask everybody to take a seat. Okay. Everybody, this is our get started. Thank you very much.
First of all, I want to thank all of you. I'm the welcome. I want to thank every single one of you because there are people here from near and far. And usually I have everything in my head. I don't make this and I don't do notes. I'm just going to read the beginning of a letter that John wrote to me once. And then I have all my books for props. I promise you, I will not read you the whole books or everything out of them. They're mainly here to give me comfort, because that's what, besides John, my children, my family, my friends, it was all about books. So, March the 5th over the Atlantic. Dear Rosita, once upon a time, on a bench in Hamburg, a very long time ago, your soul and mine were silently exchanged in a form of spiritual understanding and need for each other. Out of this recognition and acceptance, 37 years have gone by together, most of the time, creating a family, doing as much as we possibly could for each other, as two sensible human beings could ever do. Our marriage has been a good one. I don't want to hear the rest of that letter because it was actually a letter that came at the crossroads of our life. And I have to go back now a little bit because it all started in Hamburg in a way, but it actually, our life was in Saskatoon. And I'm going to start with the people from Saskatoon because that's where we created our business. That's where the people supported us. That's where I have friends and relatives who came here and are here. And to my parents, there is this thing about my parents. They started a company called Symphonium, which sold in the beginning religious articles and music because John was working in a radio station and my mother was programming. And so that's how the families met. And then later on, my parents didn't keep Symphonium. My mother went off to teach in the United States at Marquette University. But John and I had already been struck by Cupid's bow. Even though I was only 16, 15, I don't even know the age, nobody knows. And I can't remember anymore because I'm too old now to remember. And then when my grandmother died in Hamburg, John and I eloped. And then we were in Saskatoon, and for 10 years, the first 10 years, we were juggling all kinds of things. Because when you have a job where you are outside of the home or in a company, you actually get a salary. But if you have your own business, it is a creation, and you have to make your salary. And every month, and for 10 years or more, there was a lot of juggling going on. And John was always taught that immediately we had children, where did they come from? Anyway, we were very lucky because all those years we were sustained that we cared about each other, we loved each other, and we worked very well together, and we give meaning to each other's lives, and we found meaning. And in Saskatoon, the community really, really embraced us. So after a few years, John invited his family, Jacqueline, Miriam, Mark, Jacqueline's husband Mark, their son Rodolphe, who is here with us today. And they all helped in the company and helped us make it what it later on became. And then I also have here two of my sisters. I'm one of 8, no, one of 9. And I have here my sister Monica, my sister Bernadette, my younger sister, 4 of Monica's children, who is Michael, Sarah, Lisa, and I'm missing one. Garina, there you go. I couldn't see you there, Garina. Yes, and her husband Jay. And then who all made this trip from all places. Rodolphe came all the way from Phoenix. My sisters drove from Ohio. And Michael flew here, Claude picked him up. And I also have Arena's husband who's been helping us, Jay. And then I have, after that, so we had helped them, and the community in Saskatoon, everybody supported us for years. It was just a wonderful place to have a family, to have a business. And in fact, we still own the chocolate factory there, Hardenne House. And Claude, now, which was started actually by my John with Anthony, but later Anthony met Denise. Denise is over there. And hi Denise, hi Anthony. And they gave me my first 2 beautiful grandchildren. So that was Dominic and Simone. And Simone just recently got engaged tomorrow. So that will be our next celebration. Claude was here. Where's he, Claude? Oh, there he is, so I didn't see you. And his wife, Charlene, and their daughter, Madeline, stayed in Saskatoon for many years, ran the chocolate shop because Denise and Anthony actually came east. And then we also, as a lot of people here know, we also started and had a business here, which was a Hardenne house in the yellow building and a coffee shop, which they ran, I don't know for how many years, until it just got to be too much and going back and forth, et cetera, et cetera. So I also have here from my past in Saskatoon, and as James reminded me, where are you, James? That you remind, sorry. James and his mother was my friend, and he was saying that we were actually, his mother and I were actually friends while he was still in the womb. So, kind of. Patrice, her sister, called me yesterday. She would like to be here. And Patrice and James and their family were like family to us. And I really appreciate that you came and made this voyage, James. And Patrice called me yesterday. She's in Saskatoon. And she recently had a tragedy of her own. Her husband, who was this wonderful man, he died at only 64, suddenly. So I'm thinking of her. And she was like a daughter to me. Then, after, who else did I forget from Saskatoon? Did I forget anyone else here from Saskatoon? Ah, Helen and Leilani, they are from Saskatoon, and Helen was my brother's wife, Joseph. And Joseph only died 3 months ago. So Helen is here with their daughter, Leilani, and Helen and I always got up to mischief, and she was my right arm in many, many, many things. And because she was strong, and she does everything the easy way, and I always find the long way. So she helped me a lot, and we have been supported, and I appreciate your support, Helen, and that both of you came. Thank you very, very much. Did I mention my younger sister, Bernie? I did already. Okay. Did I forget? Oh, Sasha. Their family was right next door to us. All the Rogers and Sasha and her will probably Barbara, who can't be with us. She's representing her family. Don and Otto Rogers and Barbara and their children were all in and out of each other's houses and were part of our lives for forever. Exactly. Thank you, Sasha. And she's a wonderful artist. She has a show at the gallery that I just went. I saw your show. I went in when we went to see. It's beautiful. It's very beautiful. So then, after we left Saskatoon, we came east. We had sold our company. I forgot. Elena and Kevin are my Saskatoon years. In fact, I said if they don't come, I'm not giving this event. Because they know me better than most people, because I do have a wild and crazy streak. I tend to go off on tangents. I don't write things down. I brought my books along as props, because the three things that meant most to me is John first, my family, my friends, everything we created. But if I wouldn't have had books, I don't know. Books were something that I learned a lot from, and I was so lucky I had mentors. And Elena and Kevin understood when I was off on my tangents, because my mother was living up there too, in Narnia or the Neverlands and wherever some people live and others don't. And I've lost so many of those people that knew when I was, because my mother brought us up on Plotinus and Socrates and all kinds of Plato, Nietzsche, I don't even know how many others. And so most people, that's not just the first conversation they want to have. But with Elena and Kevin, and I took many classes from them at the University of Saskatchewan, which was very close to us. And the other thing I have to really say is in my life, I've been totally blessed by the mentors I've had. Because even though I hardly finished grade 8, Claude always said he didn't finish high school, I was hiding with my brothers and sisters when Father Bob Ogle would come as a little girl, because I was looking after the children. And my parents were both working, and we were new immigrants and starting from scratch. But I learned more from both of them and for all the other people who took me under their wing, because so many people in Saskatoon, you will know Martha Bloom, Claude remembers her too, many, many, many people. And all those people there supported our businesses and looked after us, and still, many now still support us at a chocolate shop. So then, I don't think I forgot any more Saskatchewan people, have I? I don't think so. Well, then we came to Cobourg. And John said Picton, I said Cobourg. We looked all over the place. I chose Cobourg because it was a little closer to Toronto. And there was a train. Not a very good one, but there was a train. And it was also, I felt kind of, you didn't have to go that extra. He liked that little harbor there because he always enjoyed the outdoors and boats and everything else. But luckily, after our daughter left, and our daughter Jennifer is here with her husband Fred, who John brought into the family, but his family we've known forever. We know his mother and his uncle and we know his sisters. His whole family has been a part of our family for a long, long time. And so then after all the children were kind of settled here, Claude and Charlie came here as well. And as Claude said, he came here to work things out with his dad. He told his wife one day, if we stay here, I'll never work this out because all the children, it takes a lifetime actually to work things out with your parents. It doesn't just happen when you're, you have to work things out. Anyway, the wonderful thing is that John got, once he sold his business and came here, he was just like this new person because he no longer had all the responsibilities. Because Claude can tell you, I'm not good with numbers, I'm better with words. And he could tell you that, where was I now?
Numbers.
I was in numbers. That's why I forgot that. I was in numbers. And so the thing was that when he came here, he didn't have to worry anymore about paying everybody the rents, all the responsibilities. And so he sold his company. And I think just as John always said to me, without luck, we will go nowhere. And some people say we made our luck. There's a part of the whole family there, and Elaine, who's a good friend, and I'll come to that. She always said, everybody always says, you make your luck. But this is true, partially true. But it's not totally true, because without luck, you still cannot. I forgot you there. I'm looking at you, Sue. Your husband, who was John's friend even before we were married, and that was in the travel wilderness in Saskatchewan. And you're from Winnipeg, and Sue worked many, 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 many years at the Globe and Mail. And so we've been connected all these years, and just a few years ago, not even how long has Neil been dead now? January. Yeah. So John and all these people and a few others that we were always this really close, and they never, throughout their whole lives, they always stayed connected. Isn't that true? And because of Sue, we also met Jennifer Reed back there, who's also a Toronto friend, but she's also a friend that we met in Saskatchewan because of her aunt, and we kind of inherited her. And when she arrived, she never left and stayed in our family. She came in a car called Heaven and lived in the car. She's one of 11 children. Her family was 18, the reason. So thank you for coming and bringing Susan, Jennifer. So then when we got here, we had to find a place to live, and we went to different places, and we ended up in Cobourg. And I like Cobourg because it was not as busy as Toronto. It had this beautiful lake, it had these beautiful parks, it had these beautiful old houses. It had huge trees, and in the prairies, although I love the prairies, you don't have big, you have open and wide spaces and wind, and it's different, and it's a different kind of beauty. But I came to Cobourg, and my family followed me here. John bought a building, and Claude and Charlene, as I said, went into business. And then I met all these new people. First of all, we met, who did I meet first? Pierre is here, who we helped, and who helped us. We're always doing exchange. The Lovekins who helped us in our building and helped John. And well, everybody here helped us in some way, shape, or form. There's Ken back here who ran the theater in our building at H&H here on 201 Division Street. And there is Jennifer's good friend, I think you're next to her, Andrea Pilar. And there, way in the back there, oh, is that, no, I can't see. There's Mrs. Lindenberg, who I forgot was also from Saskatoon, who's Belgian, and who, she said, my mother always really liked her husband. And I thought, and we have the whole tribe of the shepherds. And Elaine was a very, very dear friend of John and of mine. And she actually came into our life because we moved to Gore's Landing after we lived here. And she was renting a little blue house from us. And then we met her whole family, and her family has like adopted us, and they're all here. They've flown from far and near. I want to have Brendan and his wife Kimberly, and then there's Alan and his wife Mary. There's Tyler there, and there is Elaine over there. Where's your mom? Her back. Okay, well, I'm sorry because I thought maybe I missed her. And then there's Megan and Bruce. And there is recently, I was supposed to be in a wedding for their daughter, which I really wanted to go to. We were to all their son's wedding. But because of this event and many other reasons, because I didn't have yet the strength or the courage to go on any kind of and I had to concentrate on this event. So, plus I was having all my windows changed, so. And then there's a whole contingent here from Prince Edward County. And they are over here, and I have to say, Sebastian, thank you so much. He made his 60th birthday for me, that Jennifer threw, that I will never forget. And then there is a Vincent, and here visiting too, her friend Andrea, who makes the most beautiful pottery. And who's that behind you in the dark? Oh, yes, okay. Thank you for coming. I didn't see you earlier. So I think now I'm going to give to someone else because I think I'm way over. Jennifer said there's only so many minutes and I'm going to so I will just, who's next?
Death is nothing at all. I have only slipped away into the next room. I am I, and you are me. Whatever we were to each other, that's still are. Call me by my old familiar name. Speak to me in an easy way, which we always do. But no difference in the two, where no false air or solemnity or sorrow. Love as we always loved at the little jokes we enjoy together. Play, smile, think of me, and if you want to, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that is always was. Let it be spoken without effect, without a trace of shadow. Life means all that is ever meant. It is the same as it ever was. There is unbroken continuity. Why should I be out of the mind because I'm out of sight? I am waiting for you, from eternal, somewhere very near, just around the corner. All is well.
Good morning, I'm Rudy Duber. I'm John's nephew. So I'll go over a little bit of maybe a history of John from sort of the Belgian side of the house, and a little bit of how John impacted our lives. So being an engineer, I have a script, right? So I'm not as much of a man of letters as he does. Okay, so let's get into it. Dear friends, family, and welcomers. We are gathered here today to pay tribute to the man and memories of John Hardenne. John was my uncle, a dynamic person, a man of culture, I think is evident, and of many interests, a very successful entrepreneur. And most importantly, I think, always ready and willing to help and go the extra distance to help people. I'll be providing some history and some perspectives of how John has impacted our lives. So first some background on John. So at a young age of 18, John saw limited opportunities in Belgium. And he was not excited about the prospect of being drafted for 2 years in mandatory military service. So he took the bold decision at the time, this was of course, in the 1960s, so a long time ago, took the bold decision to immigrate to Canada with very little knowledge of what he could do here. He knew, however, that with his go-getter attitude and his eagerness to meet people, he would make it work. So he decided to take classes in journalism, and soon thereafter, he was hired by the CBC, and he was dispatched to Winnipeg, where he grew his friends and support. From there, he was sent to Saskatoon, where he continued to expand his network, and he also met his wife to be. After a few years, he decided to leave the steady job to buy and to work in a very small travel agency. At that time, the main purpose was to send people who wanted to see their family in Europe. He struggled for the first few years, but through his hard work and enthusiasm, he grew the business to a very successful travel agency with his sister Jacqueline and her husband Mark, and very young me arrived in 1976. So for those who know my dad, Mark, he's a great man who I deeply admire, but not one to make big speeches. And that's why I'm standing here today, and not my dad, Mark, who's on the program. So I'll speak a few words in his tone to describe how I came to know John. So quote, when Jacqueline and I realized that teaching in France was no longer satisfactory, John happened to visit and offered me a position as a bookkeeper and later general manager of his Canadian operations. That is the man he was, generous and leaping to action. We worked together for 25 years, and Symphonia grew from one office to 15 throughout Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Our staff was loyal, hardworking, and most of them stayed with us for a very long time. John was a very entrepreneur, looking for the next big move. I was cautious, methodical, informed, and aware of the bottom line. So our differences created tension sometimes, but proved to be an excellent combination to grow the business exponentially. Symphonia became one of the leading travel agencies in the country and received many awards from airlines and tour operators at the national level. John was one of the founding fathers of ACTA, which is the Association of the Canadian Travel Agents, which is still active today. He was appointed director of the Area of Canada, and for many years hosted his own TV show, Saskatchewan Health Destination, which is being shown on the screen. I was actually looking at the show for that. Our friendship and trust in one another lasted long after the business was sold. Okay, so that was my dad's quotes. At that time, John also hosted his younger sister Miriam for a few visits. She also came to immigrate to Canada, worked at Symphonia for many years, and married a wonderful man and entrepreneur, Peter Golf, who's also a my John. This is another example of how he had such a deep impact on our entire family. He drew you in and connected. On a personal note, I came to know John in my childhood, spending many wonderful weekends and days at his cabin at Water Lake. At that time, John was the first person to own a jet boat in the 1980s, for those who know that. And it was the most powerful boat on the lake. I would say that it made a tremendous noise. And it was the envy of the lakeside neighbors. Everybody commented on the jet boat. That was definitely infamous. So I remember having a few white knuckle rides when he went full throttle jet boat. It got to 70 miles an hour, which is an insane amount of speed on the lake. But that's the way he lived his life, full throttle. I also came to know my cousins, Chloe, Anthony, and Jennifer, and I see the same wonderful characteristics in them as I did in John, smart entrepreneurs with the ability to reconnect. So John influenced me greatly. I developed a deep appreciation for aircraft and travel, even in my early years. Since then, I've pursued a very rewarding career designing jet engines. I moved to the US for the last 25 years, so a little bit of wanderlust. I was especially touched when John reached out to me to join him for a visit to NASA Space Center in Houston. We had a wonderful visit of mission control along with John's great friend Hardenne and my son Eric. And I'm happy to hear that Tyler Blair is here. He was our host. Thank you very much for that. It was a very memorable visit. So we celebrated John's birthday. It was a very, very memorable experience. He's very much missed by our family, children and grandchildren. Forever thankful to John that he is formidable help bringing us into the new world. I look around the room and I see a gathering of very special people, a group that meant a lot to John. So with that, I hope you can share stories about John with one another and connect with each other as John would want. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thanks everyone for coming. I am not a public speaker, so I'm going to read what I wrote for you. For me, this is not simply a celebration of life, but my acknowledgement of greatness. Personally, I participated in John's celebration of life, and for the 39 years Shirley and I have been together, we prioritized and designed our life to be present with my mom and dad while he was alive. I will be forever grateful for the desire and conviction that led to us packing up and moving to Ontario. I feel lucky knowing and feeling the importance of being together while we have time. And now, Rosie will move in with us. We couldn't have planned it better. The decision to stay close and put our daughter together with her grandparents was the best decision I ever made as a father and a son. As the eldest, I also had a strong impression at the beginning of our family. Rosie being just 18 when I was born, needless to say, my young parents were going to need some help along the way. That forever set the tone of my life, until my father's last day, and even now. With my mother, I aim to be a good son. Our childhood could almost be summed up by two things as I saw it: travel and food. Or more accurately, building the travel business and hosting dinners. John and Rosie were a team. John would invite the guests, and Rosie would perform miracles in the kitchen, preparing meals for their guests. One of my favorite observations over a lifetime of shared dinners was the seating plan. John always arranged the seating for dinner, placing Rosie at the far end of the table with the children and placed all the guests next to him. And if you ever worked in the kitchen with him, you're familiar with the soundtrack. My parents hosted dinners more than anything else they ever did. I can tell you that those dinners and our family dinners were truly a substantial part of our life's reward. I never met a better friendship person than my dad. I think of that line in the movie, what are you doing? I'm smiling, it's my favorite. My dad's favorite was friendship. I learned in my youth that when he was away from us on his many trips, he wasn't just away from us without the thought of us. He was building relationships that turned into friendships at home and around the world that would change our lives. But no, not only our lives, but the lives of others as well. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard someone tell me that John changed their life. John was a connector and had a remarkable memory of all his friends. He kept them close and was able to connect them with others whenever he knew they could help each other. And many of those friendships were lifelong. In testimony to this, the very first family he made friends with in Canada upon arriving in Winnipeg in 1955 were also the last family that he saw before passing away on November 20th, 2020. So that one lifetime friendship bookended all the other amazing friends and the stories of joy and happiness he built throughout his life. We all have our own ways of expressing love. Mine is time. When I love someone, I give them my time. And 16 years ago, Charlie and I made the decision to move to be in John and Rosie's daily life. It was a perfect decision for us, and it presented so many opportunities to be together in the glow of our decades of work and just enjoy time together. all the while getting to know each other even better. In my humble opinion, there is no greater way to honor someone as they get older than with your presence. We cannot buy time, but we can make time. Time is love. In his final days, Jen, Rosie, and I were by his side, and at one moment he said, "Shut up. Too much love." I don't know if such a thing even exists, but I'm happy he's getting our message. Later, while having dinner, Jen said, "I hope the last thing I hear from my dad isn't shut up." The next day, his last day, we were alone with him, and Jen was understandably distressed, and she asked him how she went to live without him. When he said, "We will be together forever." Now that's greatness. The day after he died, the worst day of my life so far, my best friend, who just flown in from Vancouver, said, "You should go to work. It's a part of his legacy. You'll feel close to him there." And he was right. I do, and I am proud to carry on our family legacy of 73 years in business in Saskatoon. That, of course, started with my mother's parents, Francis and Fritz, my grandparents. I just flew home from Saskatoon 2 days ago, and while there, I had several conversations with clients in the store about John and their fondness for him and the good times they shared together. It's funny to say this as a business person, but he taught me that cash is not the only currency in business and in life. A world of experience, intellect, and exuberance died with my father. I can only dream now what he would do in all the situations that arrive to come and challenge us. John always had a plan, was the consummate optimist, and absolutely loved the world we live in and the people we serve in our working lives. He led me into this commitment in my own life, and in doing so helped me discover the greatest gift I have ever known, that we receive by helping others. None of us are perfect, and life is always presenting new challenges. But being grounded in these values and pursuing them has given me a greater gift than I ever dreamed of. I think I can say you already know how John felt about the importance of your friendship because it's in your own heart. John celebrated life through his friendships and expressed love in how he spent time with all of you. That is where I understood my father best because many of you became my friends. I have built my own personal relationships with these friends all over the world, and in doing so, feel a little closer to who he was. Just knowing how his friends felt about him and Rosie, that's enough. When I spoke to many of them after he passed, they could not speak, we just sobbed together, but I felt close to them. My dad couldn't say stuff, but when I saw how others loved him, I was affected. Watching you love my dad taught me a lot about loving him too. The story of our life together is my favorite book, and I've stored it in the most sacred place in my heart. Today is an acknowledgement of greatness, not perfection. No one gets it all right. But my relationship with my dad never ended, and the spirit of friendship he left so much will keep us all together forever. We were always learning from each other, growing in our respect for one another, and in the most beautiful way, I feel some of his greatness in me. Thank you very much.
I'll start off by saying thank you very much for all coming. This is a really special day to be able to celebrate John, and I appreciate you coming. I know that the entire family. So thank you very much. I believe everyone in this room knew John on a first-hand basis. You will remember him as an individual who embraced every day. He was always up for an adventure and loved to share experiences with the people around him. His sense of adventure inspired people throughout his walk of life to either pursue their own adventures or to join him on one or many groups of intrepid travelers that he loved to explore the world with. My own personal walk of life has been inspired and informed as a result of having John and his parents. There's so much I could say, so many stories I could share to celebrate John and the relationship that he shared with Rosita, which invigorated our upbringing as children. I've chosen to focus on the theme of water. You'll have better appreciation for that as I share my remarks. Rudolph already alluded to some of them. My parents encouraged both Jennifer and I to explore the environment around us, whether that was nearby in the backyard or far from places around the world. Early examples of this parental encouragement to explore involved trips abroad at a very young age. Upon reflection, I'm not sure if their motivation was to give themselves a break from me or to expand my horizons. Truth be told, it was probably a bit of both, as I was a very, very challenging child to raise. Thankfully, they persevered. Nearly 50 years ago, John Rosvita made arrangements for me to join his youngest sister, Miriam. She's right behind me. And her husband, Peter, along with his 3 kids, Tom, Michael, and Sabrina, on an epic trip to Greece for the summer. This was my first trip away from John Rosvita. To say that it was a great adventure would be the understatement of the day. Peter was born in Greece, and he loved the water. He made arrangements for us to experience things that a young person could only dream of. We were on the water almost every day, scuba diving, snorkeling, sailing, water skiing, playing in water, and enjoying the beach in every way, and incredible food was part of each and every day. 2 years later, John was sending me off to the south of France to join a friend of his from France but educated in Canada at the University of Saskatchewan, Michel Calmel, one of the 3 musketeers, as John, Michel, and Bernard Chapuis were known as back in the early days of their adult lives. This trip to France involved traveling to Nice alone and spending a couple of days with Michel and his family as they prepared for a 3-week beach vacation, camping on the side of the train. We were on the French island of Corsica. I was immersed in the family activities and embraced a new and foreign experience. It was in Corsica where I was exposed to windsurfing for the first time. Michel was a particularly athletic and adventurous guy. He taught me how to windsurf and took me along on his daily spearfishing expeditions to catch fish to feed the family. I had an incredible experience and realized personal growth in so many interesting ways. Like Peter and Michel, John loved the water. He always had a romantic relationship with the water. He loved being on and or near it. This was not to say that he was an avid seaman or accomplished in any manner related to the water. But when given the opportunity, he would always jump at the chance to go fishing, sailing, power boating, you name it, jet boating. I have many, many fond memories of the laughter that we shared as a family, watching and participating in numerous nautical adventures with John. Some were terrifying, but most were entertaining. True to John's character, it was always exciting. As John endeavored to continue growing the travel business, we relocated to Vancouver as a family, thanks in a large part to the confidence John had in his business partner and brother-in-law, Mark Duke, and his sisters, Jacqueline and Miriam. Symphony travel business in Saskatchewan was in safe hands. During the Vancouver chapter, John had bought a cabin cruiser powerboat, and on one occasion, we were out on the Vancouver harbor as a family. All was well, until it wasn't. We experienced engine problems and found ourselves dangerously close to a barge that was being towed by a large tugboat. We were drifting in harm's way. All of us aboard were very stressed. Rosie, you can attest to that. Thankfully, the Coast Guard arrived, intervened, and escorted us to safety. Yet another adventure, and one that we all hoped would not be repeated. For me, being exposed to John's nautical adventures led me to my own personal experience. In Greece, and in France, I learned to be comfortable in large bodies of water. I learned how to embrace my swimming skills that were instilled in me as a very young boy as I learned to swim under the watchful eye of a neighbor, Bill Murphy. Returning from Corsica, I embraced windsurfing, catamaran sailing, water skiing, and boating in a family cottage on Rock Lake in Saskatchewan. We shared many incredible family experiences there, and I'm grateful for the commitment and effort John and Rosita invested in making it possible. One particularly memorable moment at Waka was on a beautiful sunny road at Palm Dale Lake. John decided to take the catamaran out sailing. The rest of us were dockside. Watching John go back and forth down the middle of the lake, relatively slowly due to the very long day. At a moment in time, we were all surprised to see the catamaran flying a halt and speeding down the middle of the lake. We were all quite excited to see this until we realized John was no longer on the boat. He had fallen off and was frantically swimming in the middle of the lake, as he was not fond of wearing personal flotation devices, and swimming was not his strong suit. Bode and I jumped in the tin boat and went out and rescued him, much to his delight. That was the day. Fast forward to today, and my relationship with the water has benefited my family. Dominic and Simone, Denise and I all enjoy various aspects of the water. All of this relates back to my experiences in the water and the encouragement I received from John and Rosita. Dominic and Simone are avid boaters, water sports enthusiasts, and accomplished swimmers. Denise and I are extremely proud of the fact that we know they are safe and able in and around the water. As John aged, he grew more and more fond of ocean food. It fueled his sense of adventure and his appetite for gathering over a nice meal and sharing stories. And of course, having a nice environment, living environment with his own private bathroom, always a priority for them. As a family, we gathered numerous times on ocean cruises and shared wonderful experiences. In closing, I'm thankful for the father that I was blessed with. The memories I have of John are plentiful and inspiring. I'm extremely grateful that he lived a long life pursuing his life's passions. He forged his own path. He was blessed and found his life partner. He was an incredible man. He would have loved to be here today. So thank you very much for coming today and celebrating John.
Thank you, everyone who's here today. I'll try and be brief. In the days after our dad died, we were flooded with messages from family and friends here. It was striking how many of them couldn't fathom that he was gone. He had such a big personality and a lust for life. How could such a bright light have been extinguished? I wonder if some people had more life force in them than others. I think we can all agree, if so, that John certainly did. We joked that he was the Energizer Bunny, but it was more than just a surplus of energy. He had something else in it. He had a wild exuberance, but also something more. He had what Gen Z calls main character energy. Grief is complicated and hard, much like John's illness and death. But John, not surprisingly, left a lot behind to be thankful for. I'm fortunate he was my dad. He was a good man. He wasn't without flaws, but he always had the best intentions, and he could have taught a master class on how to live a good life. He had a wonderful growth mindset. He loved looking for opportunities, uncovering untapped potential. He could find a silver lining in even the darkest of circumstances. He loved any excuse to celebrate, to drink champagne,
to eat caviar, to throw a party. It could be said that hosting dinner parties was one of his love languages. He was fun. He was an epic storyteller who loved to laugh. He was honest, a man widely admired for his integrity. He was generous with a capital G. His good deeds could fill homes. He was charismatic and curious. He reveled in the companies of others, family, friends, strangers. I remember once during his illness, stopping in Hardenne to run into the pharmacy. John stayed in the car because his body was failing badly at that point. In the few minutes that Fred and I were gone, John had unrolled his window and happily struck up a conversation with the woman in the next car over. It was typical John. Rewind the tape 33 years, and he and I were on our way to meet a tour group in India. On the way, we stopped in Penang, Malaysia. On our first evening, after he'd spent the day in business meetings, he came to find me at the beach where I'd spent my day reading and sunbathing. He found me beset by a letchy, middle-aged man trying to convince me to have dinner with him. I expected John to tell the man to take a bite. Perhaps I should have known better. But in my defense, I was still quite young. So I did not expect John to invite the man to have dinner with us 3 nights in a row. A stranger's story, but also typical John. John was always ready to set off on the next adventure and was happiest when he wanted to go along for the ride. Road trips were his favorite. He lived to travel and to take people on trips to visit friends and family. He was sweet and he was kind. He loved classical music. Rosie once said it was how he communicated his emotions. He turned to Beethoven when he was stressed, Tchaikovsky when he was excited, Chopin when he was contemplative, and Vivaldi when he was happy. He also enjoyed Gregorian chants, ABBA, Linda Ronstadt, and flamenco guitar. Thank you, Roger. He loved games. Backgammon was his lifelong go-to, but he had a soft spot for cards. In the 1980s, his brother-in-law Peter taught him how to play Mariba. It's the Greek partnership version of Rummy. It requires 2 decks and multiple players. It's a game that can go on for hours. John loved it. He loved making cocktails. Brandy Alexander, Pure Royale, were Perennial favorites. But he would go through phases. When I was in high school, he went through a weirdly long banana daiquiri phase. An old friend from high school recently reached out and reminded me that he was 15 the first time he met my dad, who'd opened our front door and immediately offered to make him a hot toddy. He loved numbers. His ability to do complex equations in his head was something else. He loved playing the stock market. When he suffered a cognitive incident during a bout of pericarditis, it didn't seem extraordinary that he temporarily lost his words, but not numbers. Numbers were his friend. Indeed, John loved to talk about investments and money, but make no mistake, he knew the true nature of wealth. He found it in his connections with friends and family, which he carefully nurtured throughout his long life. Not a day would go by that he wouldn't reach out to someone he knew. It feels ironic. John would have called it Murphy's Law, that a chronically upbeat person like my dad ended up with a daughter who suffers from severe depression. When I was young, he insisted I smile and just be happy. It frustrated him to no end, but I wasn't able to do so. Frustrated me too, to be honest. He wanted so much for me to be happy that sometimes it caused conflict and tension within our relationships. But we loved each other, and we both knew that that's all that mattered. He didn't like the way my illness made him feel powerless, and it pained him to see me suffer. He was always ready to do whatever he could to help me or anyone he saw suffering. His sense of compassion was profound. He gave me so many gifts, too many to list here. But the greatest gift that he ever gave me was introducing me to my husband. John had a few phrases he liked to use on repeat. Whenever death and dying came up, he'd say, "I'll take a pill." Frankly, that one sounds really morbid now. Thanks, John. Another was, "You'll miss me when I'm gone." Well, he certainly wasn't wrong on that front. A story without a main character is not a good character. It's been 11 months since John died, and the world feels different. Full of people, but somehow empty. I'm not a spiritual person. I wish I was. And then I had faith that I would see him again. But I suspect I won't. He's gone, and I miss him. But I like to think about him and that precious eternal light that he had. And I like to imagine that this warm glow surrounds us and protects me. Thank you.
Hi everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Simone. I am John's oldest granddaughter. First, I'm going to be reading a last minute tribute from Rosie's sister, Sylvia, who could not be with us here today. John was a friendly, traveling, generous family man. Let me repeat that sentence. John was a family, friendly, traveling, generous man. A generous family man because while hosting his French radio program in Saskatchewan, he met the German radio host Frances Seido, who had 9 children. She and her husband Chris owned Symphonia Travel Agency. John soon got involved in the family in more ways than just traveling. While the younger Seido clan were involved in the family business by running the printing machine and collating promotional flyers for mailings, John was enticed to guide tours in Europe. A romance blossomed between him and the eldest, Rosie, when the Seido clan moved to Milwaukee. John took over managing the agency with the intention of purchasing. Separating the two lovebirds did not last. When our grandmother died in Germany the same year and Rosie was sent to deal with the estate matters, John flew to Hamburg and proposed. John did not have 2 nickels to rub together and found the travel agency was in heavy debt. Nonetheless, with the help of friends and bankers, he made a go of it, and a go he did. Traveling, picking up new friends and acquaintances in all corners of the world, inviting them to Saskatoon and later to the Vancouver branch. Rosie never knew what strangers she would be hosting at her next meal. Over the decades, these strangers would become close friends that Rosie and John would meet in various parts of the globe. While still struggling, John hosted the one and only Seido family reunion in Saskatoon to celebrate for Fritz's birthday so he could see his brother and Hans's family. He paid for Fritz's airfare from Hawaii. John kept the Seido siblings together, generously helping with down payments for their personal purchases. He included Frances on voyages to visit relatives and friends in Europe and the States. He purchased a condo in Hawaii when the Seidos moved to the islands to make visits, easy for Rosie. As the 9 siblings married and raised their families and scattered to California, Ohio, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Switzerland, John never failed to take Rosie to connect with them. In Milwaukee, my parents turned over their travel business for me to manage. I met my husband when he came in to book a trip. We joined Rosie and John in Europe several times, visiting their friends in remote castles or with wine and dining in Paris. We cruised Alaska together. My favorite trip was to Tunisia and Spain, where we met John's Belgian parents, where they vacationed. Purchasing an airline fare to Saskatoon to visit my brother Joe, having not seen him in 50 years, was a tiny example of John's generosity. His generosity will forever be remembered in my thankful heart. With that, I'm going to read a short poem that spoke to me. I'd like the memory of me to be a happy one. I'd like to leave an afterglow smiles when life is done. But I'd like to leave an echo whispering softly memories of happy times and laughing times on bright and sunny days. I'd like the tears of those who grieve to dry before the sun of happy memories that I left when life is done.
Hello, everyone. You can hear me? Yes. I'm Rosita's friend, John's friend and Rosita's friend. We are Rosita's and John's friends. And we came down from Atlanta, Georgia. But how long have we known John and Rose? I'm going to, because I really know this and for this. And I appreciate the grief of this in this gathering. And my sympathy goes to the families of the gathered here, of course, the family of John and to everyone who is here. For how long have we known John and Rose Peter? Our youngest daughter is now 33 years old. And this means that we know Rose for possibly 75 years, and we know John for 35 years. Almost half of our life, which was warmed, changed, and supported by their presence, judgment, advice for all these years. For 23 of those years, we lived in the United States, but nothing changed. Their voice was always in our everyday life. There were meetings at different events. They visited to look at our new house and for John to put the pictures in our living room with roses and pies. So everything would look harmonious and beautiful. Then we met on the wedding of our daughter, and the last time in Boston 2 years ago. So many times during the week in our usual life, I would say, as John would say, or as Roswitha would say, and I would always remember how they speak, kind and assertive, teasing and loving, and always unique. One of Roswitha's favorite writers, Carl Jung, wrote a book with the title, Modern Men in Search of a Soul. We speak now about consciousness, but we rarely speak about soul. It has disappeared from our language as an old-fashioned and outworn religious term. But apart from all its other meanings and connotations, there exists an understanding that soul is not in the body, but body is in the soul. The soul, but the body is in the soul, and therefore, in all of us here, in others, to those who knew the person, who were affected by his words and actions. The soul that involved the person has achieved and shared with others. And thinking of this, looking at this big gathering of people who came from far away, we begin to understand the range of John Hardenne, the scale of his person, the scale of the personality. He continues to be part of our life because now, at the moment of grief, he's with us now, intense as a presence and as intense as a memory. And memory too is him being in us. I saw by chance a book, a little book, that Jennifer Hardenne, whom we knew very well ago, wrote for her father, The Gifts My Father Gave Me. And I thought of the gifts Kevin and I and my family have received from him. Kevin was born after the World War II, but his father who just returned from the front and who was great, 28 years of age. Kevin's youth, his childhood, but his youth was affected by the memories of what it meant in his family. My own life was also somewhat strange. From Soviet Russia, the daughter of the dissident, worrying about my father's arrest, the experience of Russian invasion of Czechoslovakia, my father losing his job, of forced immigration. So what was it that attracted us so deeply to John Hardenne's family and the family of Rosa Hardenne? They understood deeply the gravity of what is happening in the world. If you listen to their stories, the stories of Rosie, you know that the devastation that our world experiences and injustice and poverty and the force of violence, they remember and they know it. And everything they have agreed, as I saw it and as I understood it, was an answer to outweigh the depths of injustice and the depths of the devastation that this brings in our life. That was their peace. That was the beauty of their house. That was the photographs on their tables. That was the food that they ate. For me, it was not simply John's spirit. It was also John's battle with the force of death. And I admire that deeply, and I admire that in his family. This was the biggest gift that the family of John Hardenne taught me. A clear-sighted awareness of the death and desolation that brings to our life. The heaviness of grief, surrounded by the traumas of our modern age. And yet, the battle against it was so much beauty. John fought that battle last time, a year ago, with ever caring and ever capable Rosita and his children by his side. But that last battle was only a little fight with the whole battle of his life. And the first time, and that made me fall in love with them, the first time when I saw them. And that's why I wanted to be near them for so many years of my life. Was it now, I ask, a battle, or is it a dance for joy, for beauty, for peace, for kindness that we have so tangibly and astonishingly experienced that brought us all here today to remind us again that soul is much larger than body, that memory is also the life of the soul, and that in John's case, its spaciousness, the power of his soul and memory is as vital and piercing and real as the trees outside us today, outside their house, the sky over our heads, the photographs of living faces in their house, and the places with his Rosita and children wanted us to visit and love. Thank you.
Don't Kevin. Here in English, but halfway across the Atlantic with my accent. I just here want to say farewell to John.
He looks larger than life because he always did and was larger than life. And I want to say thank you to Rosie, particularly. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to be here. And I also want to thank Claude, Anthony, Jennifer, as well as their significant others, Charlene, Denise, and Fred, and their beautiful children whom we've had the opportunity to meet here. We have wonderful things here. I didn't write anything, and I'm not going to talk very long. I'm going to read a passage from one of my favorite writers whom Rosie mentioned. But I want to talk about one thing that always impressed me about John Hardenne and Rosie. It's not just larger than life, it's greatness of spirit, it's actually magnanimity. And magnanimity is really greatness of soul. I'm following the same theme as Hardenne here. And I'm following a very pagan theme, because this goes back thousands and thousands of years. It goes back to the tradition of the soul of the world, of which we are all just fragments. We're thrown into this world, we have no idea what's going on, and somehow we have to make sense of it. And that's uncomfortable for us. Somehow we have to find ourselves. And then other people find us, and they give us a home and a place in life. And this is particularly true when you think of John and Rosie. Just think of John, born in 1937 in Belgium. His father was a policeman, as far as I understand. And just 2 doors up the street was the Gestapo headquarters. Just imagine how much he wanted to escape from that. And then Rosie, born in May 1945 in the wall cities, Berlin. Simply impossible. And her mother, if I understand, a handkerchief, a white handkerchief on a stick, going down through the different rows of people who wanted to occupy Berlin and finding the Americans. Mother was pregnant, and they somehow took her in and gave her safe contact. There's a line from one of my favorite lines, which will seem kind of crazy, but here it is, I'll say it anyway. If you do not hope for that which cannot be hoped for, you will not find it. For no amount of research will get you there, and there is no beaten path to its door. If ever 2 people were thrust into an impossible situation without apparent hope, it was John and Rosie. And so, for me, what they evince in their own way, I don't want to dramatize this. John is probably down to the twinkle in his eye, that kind of naughtiness in which I love so much. You need a little bit of naughtiness everywhere you go. So when I talk about the soul, I don't mean something highfalutin. I mean that what is material from one point of view is quite spiritual from another. And so, what I'm grateful for this family, for Rosie in particular, it's been a privilege to spend the time the last couple of days with her and with all of you here. Many of you upstairs in her place. What we see here in this family is against impossible odds. Glimpse of what might be, of what the world should be, of how people should treat each other. John creates a house. My son, at 8 years old, comes and meets John. And he walks into the house, and it's an oasis for him. He thinks, how can this exist? He goes to John and says, Mr. Hardenne, you're a businessman. Are you busy? And John said, no, not at all. So John had room for everybody. And it's those glimmers that actually make life worth living, including, of course, not just the material conditions, but the intellectual, the artistic, and the spiritual life that John managed to prompt and Rosie to do all around him. And I'm going to read a passage which will seem perhaps rather strange to you. It's a passage which has struck me for many, many years. It's from a person that Rosie mentioned, lived in the 3rd century of about here at CE. He was an Egyptian a pagan, who wrote in Greek but lived in Rome, and actually had the most amazing influence upon the whole of the rest of the tradition, including all the Abrahamic religions. This particular passage that I'm going to read to you here was translated into Hebrew, into Arabic, as well as eventually back into Latin from Arabic. It's on the descent of the soul into bodies. Often I have woken up out of the body to myself and have entered into myself, going out from all other things. I have seen it, I've seen a beauty wonderfully great, and felt assurance that then, most of all, I belonged to the better part. I have actually lived the best life and come to kinship with the divine. And set firm in it, I have come to that supreme energy, setting myself above all else that is intelligible. Then, after that rest in the better, when I have come down from intellect to discursive reason, I am puzzled how I ever came down, and how my soul has come to be in this body, when it is what it has shown itself to be by itself, even when it is in the body. So then the soul, though it is of a divine nature, comes from above, enters into the body, and though it is a divine thing of the lowest rank, comes to this world by a spontaneous inclination, its own power, and the setting in order of what comes after it, and of course its descent. Ever someone looked after what comes after this drama, and just finished here. If it escapes quickly, it takes no harm by acquiring knowledge of evil and coming to know the nature of wickedness, and manifesting its powers, making apparent works and activities which, if they had remained hidden in the spiritual world, would have been of no use at all, because it would never have come into actuality. And the soul itself would not have known the powers it had if they had not come out and been revealed. Energy everywhere reveals a completely hidden possibility that looks like impossibility, because it does not yet truly exist without something to awaken. I just want to thank John and Rosie and the whole family for the incredible energy that they have given to our family and to all of us. Thank you.
This isn't going to be easy. There's been some wonderful things said about John and his family today, and they are all true. But I only knew John for the last 20 years of his life, long enough to know and appreciate him as a dear friend. I met John and Rosie after they had retired. So after all the stresses of building and growing a business and raising a family were kind of behind them. I met them when things were a little bit more relaxed, and John had more time to do the things he wanted to, entertaining and travel. My friendship with John and Rosie started when I rented a house from them while mine was being built. Being John and Rosie, immediately I was invited to these amazing dinners. I couldn't figure out how they did it at their house, and I really got to know John when I was having chemotherapy treatments. And I wasn't feeling great, and he decided he'd teach me backgammon as a distraction. As you heard earlier, he loved backgammon. And we played backgammon 4 years, and I know thousands of games. We even built one once when we were away confinement. We became backgammon buddies, and I never did get as good as he was. However, if I did manage to win a couple of games, he'd get this glint in his eye, and he'd whoop me for the next few and laugh. I was also able to travel quite a bit with John and Rosie, which was wonderful and filled with many adventures. You know how that works with them. And John always made it look easy for most of the time. During our friendship, he would regale me with many stories, both personal, professional, and he had a lot of stories. The stories included ones from his childhood, like surviving the Battle of the Bulge in the basement, and trips he taken while in business, not all of them safe, like a time in a shot at in Afghanistan. And while in the Amazon jungle, he was clipped on the back of his neck because he stood up during some shaman's presentation. He always had the best stories, and he told them really well and with glee. John was totally committed to his family. I love that about him. He always wanted to help them, whether they wanted it or not. He was there with advice and support. And once we were talking, and he said to me, Rosie's happy, I'm happy. And I thought, how adorable is that? And then I thought, wait a minute, he didn't say they always agreed. And they didn't, but they were always there for one another, through everything, had one another's backs, and were there for family and friends. They cared about people, and they helped many over the years. And by the way, I too got advice sometimes, whether I wanted it or not. John liked people. He especially liked interesting people. He liked people who had accomplished something, done something with their lives, whether it was entrepreneurial, medicine, business, academia, the arts, or the sciences. He liked people who could think. He always said everyone has a story. And he'd draw someone out, like, sometimes I would witness him in what I call his CDC interview mode. And he would draw someone out by deftly asking them just the right questions until they had laid out their entire story before him without even realizing it. He was always interested, had a curious mind, and because that was interesting himself. Later, we became cancer buddies, driving one another to Kingston for appointments and treatments. Even then, he would be talking about where he's going to travel next. Travel was his passion, and he got to do more of it than most people ever would. He also talked about his wish list. Like, he wanted to drive the Dempster Highway to the Yukon again. I'm like, ooh. And he wanted to go to St. Helena, where Napoleon had died. And he wished that he had done the Dakar car rally when he was younger. So when he would call me on the phone, I used to get 1 or 2 greetings. I'd pick up the phone and he'd go, "Did you sleep like a baby?" Or he'd say, "I just found the most fabulous trip, we should all go." And he'd be off. It was so much fun. John had an incredible way with numbers. I think he was a savant, really, about numbers, because he could look at a long column of numbers, scan down to the bottom, and give you the total accurately. Amazing. Asked him once how he did that, and he said, "I'm just me," and he'd laugh. And he was just that. He was always true to himself, his values, and his beliefs. And I know it's a cliche, but the world is a little less bright without him in it. Thank you.
I'm truly proud to have had John as my grandfather. As I've grown over the years and learned more about my faith, I've come to an understanding about what makes us and Hardenne's special. To me, John was a driving force, setting an example of how to live life. Character, charisma, cleverness, and kindness. Those are the aspects of John that resound with me the most. Being able to meet the people that John had relationships with has been an incredible way to get to know him better. It was clear to me how much John enriched my life and of those around him. Telling his amazing travel stories from all corners of the globe, John painted an amazing picture of the world for me. Losing John was difficult for me. However, in the midst of his deteriorating health, I really admired his positive outlook and the warmth that we shared as we knew we may be saying goodbye to each other. In those moments, John gave me exactly what I needed from him, and I believe I was able to do the same for him. I'm grateful for all the moments we shared together, and I look back home. There remains many physical things that remind me of John now. I can feel he is still around me, and the reminders of his presence in my life make me happy. I would like to thank each and every one of you who came out today. It means a lot to us to see you all here, and I know John would be very happy to have seen the people that gathered here for him. I'd like to acknowledge Jennifer and Rosie and everyone else involved in making this gathering happen in the amazing fashion that it has. I'm grateful for the special moment to honor John, and everyone present has made it special. Sincere thank you for coming. I'd like to hand things over to Maddie for some more words for us. After that, we'll have slideshows of family members. Please enjoy. Thank you.
My name is Madeline, and I'm John and Rosie's youngest granddaughter. And this is Moonlight Night by Joseph von Eichenberg. It was as if heaven had quietly kissed the earth, so that earth, with its shimmering blossoms, could only dream of heaven. The air went through the fields, the ears of corn swayed gently, the woods rustled softly, the night was so clear and starry. And my soul spread its wings out wide, and flew through the quiet lands as if it were flying home.
Now, I'm not supposed to come up here, but I forgot a couple of things. So I'm just going to be a moment. I forgot a very important person, Angela. Who is our daughter, Angela. I'm so sorry. I forgot. And I forgot another very important family, and that's Kitty, Gibney, Greta, Brad, who's here, Ellen, Paul, who couldn't be here, and Alex, who's in the room. These people have been in my life since Jennifer, I think, was about 5 years old. And their father, Brendan, was the father I would like to have had, the brother I would like to have had. He was just an amazing person. And he was there for Jennifer and I. And in so many very difficult times, he was supportive. And so I'm very sorry I didn't mention you earlier. I hope there's nobody else I forgot. And I want to just thank very much the band and the baby who played for us, because John did love music and he loved flamenco. So thank you very much, both of you.
I'm the slideshow.